So before we start, to make sure you're in the right room, this is Building Regenerative Agriculture and Regenerative Businesses by Empowering Supply Chains. So if that's not what you wanted to listen to, then go find your other room. My name is Mark Odegard. I work for Measurement. We consult with businesses to help them reduce environmental impacts, improve their community impacts, and become certified B Corps. We were recognized this year as Best for the Community, which we were honored to achieve that after our 5th year in business. So thank you. We organized this panel, Heather, Paulsen, and I, because we wanted to talk about both regenerative agriculture and regenerative farming. We have a number of clients in that space, but also as we've worked with clients to help them manage their supply chains, a lot of what we find that other companies are doing are these long checklists, really complicated programs that work for them, but for smaller businesses, I think it becomes really challenging. So ideally, what you will get out of this are some more tangible, practical ways to manage suppliers and impact the way they do their business. I want to share, I promised B-Lab and Dr. Bronner's that I would mention that at this conference, we are trying to eat the change we wish to see. And there are a number of companies who have donated or have regenerative organic certified products out there outside our door, and those include Bonterra, Gayaki, Dr. Bronner's, Purely Elizabeth, and Lotus Foods. And Vic, one of our panelists, is going to talk more about regenerative organic certification and how that came to be. So I think that'll be good. I'm going to let Heather, or I'm not going to let her. Heather has graciously volunteered amongst the two of us to moderate the panel. We have Freddie, Melissa, Sheila, and Vic. They're going to tell you more about themselves and their company. But just as a point of context, Melissa is going to be translating for Freddie. He's from Honduras and is a coffee farmer down there. And he was, we really appreciate him coming up, and he'll be able to tell the perspective of the recipient of the support that Cooperative Coffees provides, if I said that correctly. So I'm going to turn it over to Heather and let her take it away. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate it. Really happy to see everyone here. Just one quick note on a personal note. This is my 5th or 6th Champions Retreat, and I am beyond thrilled to see everybody in person again and to have so many first-time Champions Retreat attendees here as well. This is an event that really regenerates my spirit and my soul, and I'm just very, very grateful to everybody here for that. This is an extraordinary community, and we want to do everything we can to have everyone be as successful as possible. So much love to everyone here. Thank you. As we turn the stars of the show, give them the opportunity to share what regenerative agriculture and regenerative business practices mean to you in your context. I just want to kind of set the frame here that there's a strong emphasis now on the power of and the need for regenerative agricultural models and regenerative business practices. And so I want to ask the panelists, and we'll start with Melissa, about how are you moving beyond just doing good to really build and support regenerative agricultural practices that benefit the environment and the communities of your suppliers? What are some examples of the outcomes you've been able to achieve?
Thank you very much, Heather. Again, my name is Melissa Wilson Becerril, and I am Impact Manager for Cooperative Coffees. I'm very happy to be here. This is my first Champions Retreat. I represent a B Corp. We are a green coffee importing cooperative owned by 23 roasters in the US and Canada, and 11 of our roaster members, owners, are also B Corps. And we have one of them here. Shout out to Jennifer with Amavida Coffee in Florida, who is one of the leaders in our organization that allow us to do the great work that we do. So in the coffee space, it's kind of a mature industry when it comes to sustainability. We have the privilege of working with basically the leaders of the organized farmer movement around the world. They were the ones who started fair trade certification. The fair trade certification started as a farmer movement, started by smallholder coffee farmers in Mexico. Organic certification traces its origins back to German-managed agroforestry plots in coffee in southern Mexico as well. So there's a lot of capacity from the producer side, and really like the large basis of knowledge is already with them, with the people who are producing. So it's less about teaching them what to do or moving them in the right direction, but rather listening to them and empowering them with resources and access in order to be able to expand the great work that they already do. So along this process, our organization has a policy of growing with our existing suppliers. Our plans are for deep impact. So we want to see change result from our work. It's reporting, of course, is a business need, but that is a byproduct of the work we do. What we really want to do is to achieve our mission, which is improve the livelihoods of smallholder coffee farmers and make coffee a viable economic activity for them to stay in their lands and continue thriving in their communities. We are an importer, like I said, of green coffee, 100% fair trade and organic coffee. And so we're really working with the cutting edge. We not only work with organic and fair trade producers, we work with the very best of them. I say that with full confidence. Because our biggest indicator of success in our supply chain management is the length of our relationships, that also means that we share the risk when risk arises. So we started what we call our impact fund as a result of a coffee fungus epidemic that decimated production. There was no product to sell, not enough product to sell, so we needed to bridge that gap momentarily for producers to be able to meet us on the other side and continue buying that product. And we realized that this epidemic was actually a byproduct of climate change, one of the negative impacts of climate change. So we translated this fund into a climate-focused investment fund for producer-led projects, sorry. Every year we survey all our supply partners, and we're looking for making sure that year after year we have a mutually beneficial commercial relationship. And every year, the biggest need identified is climate change, adaptation, and mitigation. So we undertook this work to turn those individual investments on a co-op by co-op basis, understanding that we're working in the commodities market. We do pay great prices for the coffees that we're buying. But it is an extractive economy. Commodities are problematic by nature. And a lot of the work that the farmers do goes unrecognized monetarily. So we started this work to quantify the environmental services that farmers are already providing, smallholder farmers. And this is in order to understand what our footprint is for all scopes of emissions, but also enable financial recognition for the work that farmers are doing every year that benefits the environment. I have here Freddy Perez from COMSA, an organization in Honduras, one of our largest suppliers, and they have an entire training program on organic agriculture. So we are working on expanding that investment and have taken more than a dozen of our suppliers to be trained in this production program, which is incredibly biodiverse, really biodynamic, very dense, full of biomass, and also very productive, which is a challenge in organic agriculture. And so I'm going to pass it to Freddy so he can tell us more about that work.
Buenos días, buenas tardes. Muy agradecido por estar aquí, primero con Dios, Vikrant, Cooperativas Coffee, y a todos ustedes por estar aquí, que nos están escuchando. Es un honor y un privilegio poder contarles un poco de nuestra experiencia y de nuestros conocimientos en un corto plazo de 21 años que tenemos.
Freddy is very thankful for the opportunity to be here with God, with the B Corp community, and to have the chance to share the knowledge that they've acquired in these 21 years working in this process.
Bueno, mi nombre es Freddy Pérez, soy un pequeño productor de café orgánico de Marcala La Paz, Honduras. Formo parte de una asociación de productores que se llama Café Orgánico Marcala, CONSA.
Freddy Perez is a smallholder coffee farmer, organic farmer, and he's a member of a smallholder farmer organization called COMSA in Marcala, Honduras.
Hace 21 años que iniciamos nuestra organización de productores. Y cuando iniciamos, todo el mundo nos decía que estábamos locos por hacer agricultura orgánica porque solo sabíamos hacer agricultura convencional, agricultura de muerte. Ingresamos a una agricultura de vida que no sabíamos cómo teníamos que hacerla.
21 years ago, they started on this process, and people thought they were crazy because everybody was used to conventional agriculture, agriculture of death, and they started on this process of agriculture of life without really knowing how they were supposed to go about it.
Iniciamos 61 pequeños productores con un capital de $300. Prácticamente iniciamos de la nada, pero con muchas ganas, mucho ánimo de ser diferentes, de ser mejores y de cambiar lo que estábamos haciendo.
They started with just a few producers and $600 as capital, so practically with nothing, but with a lot of enthusiasm to try things out and see what could happen.
Al inicio nos movió el precio del café porque no valía nuestro café en ese momento, entonces ingresamos a certificar nuestro café como orgánico desde que nacimos. Iniciamos como productores orgánicos sin saber cómo hacer agricultura orgánica. Gracias en el camino hemos encontrado muchos amigos, muchos aliados, Comercio Justo, el sello de pequeños productores y varios compradores que nos han dado la mano, y con eso nosotros hemos podido encontrar un mundo diferente.
At the time we started, there was a coffee price crisis. Our coffee wasn't worth much in the market, so we decided to enter organic certification to find a differentiator and higher prices. And along the way, we've been able to find allies in fair trade, in the small producer symbol, and buyers who share our vision for the planet and have made synergies with them.
Al inicio fue muy difícil porque cuando no vales, cuando no tienes, nadie te quiere dar la mano, no te conocen. Cuando venimos acá a Estados Unidos a ofrecer nuestros cafés, a nuestros amigos, compatriotas hondureños tenían una mala experiencia y pues nadie quería saber de nosotros. Entonces tuvimos que cambiar muchas cosas en nuestra forma de hacerlo y de ser más responsables.
At first, when you have nothing to give in exchange, people don't pay attention to you, so it was very hard at the beginning to enter the markets. Honduras had a bad reputation in the market, so they had to change a lot of minds along the way to be able to start.
Gracias a que entramos en este mundo de la agricultura orgánica, del comercio justo, ahora hemos crecido. Y no solamente hemos crecido en un capital económico, sino en mejorar nuestra calidad de vida, sino que hemos crecido en amor al conocimiento, en amor a la naturaleza, en amor al ser humano. Y todo esto lo hemos descubierto en este mundo del comercio justo, de la agricultura orgánica. Para nosotros ha sido muy grandioso y seguimos en esta familia creciendo y viendo más opciones, más oportunidades. Antes solo mirábamos la miseria, ahora miramos la abundancia que tenemos. Entonces todo esto lo hemos encontrado en este sistema de agricultura orgánica, en este sistema de solidaridad con nuestros amigos, con nuestros aliados.
So at first, we would look out and see misery, but we've been able to grow not just in capital, but grow as humans and change the way we see things to a perspective of abundance. This has been thanks to all the allies we have found along the way in this family of organic agriculture and fairly traded products. So we not only talk about regenerative agriculture, but also regenerative trade needs to be a part of the conversation.
Ahora, después de 21 años, que no teníamos nada, que no valíamos nada, ahora tenemos una escuela multilingüe, donde nuestros niños están aprendiendo japonés, francés, inglés, y no solamente estos idiomas, sino también mucha información cuando el cerebro está en su etapa de oro, donde las decisiones, cuando estas personas, estos niños sean adultos, van a hacer decisiones correctas, que vayamos a cambiar nuestra forma de vivir y nuestra forma de pensar y nuestra forma de alimentarnos. Tenemos ahora un hotel, tenemos ahora una tostaduría, un negocio de tostaduría, tenemos ahora una empresa de desechos prosostenibles, donde lo que nosotros decimos que es basura, nosotros lo estamos transformando, porque debemos de hacer todo ese trabajo. Y todo eso lo podemos nosotros encontrar dentro de estos sistemas de agricultura.
We had nothing at the beginning, and now we have a school, a bilingual school that teaches children English, Japanese, French, and other languages. We have a hotel, we have a roasted coffee business for the local market. We have a waste managing operation, what used to just be trash, and this is not something provided publicly otherwise. So we are transforming residue into useful materials again.
21 años que hemos aprendido y desaprendido. Y todo lo que nosotros ahora hemos encontrado lo estamos replicando a otras organizaciones gracias a cooperativas Coffee, donde tenemos una filosofía de una propuesta de vida, donde tenemos una filosofía con una metodología de finca humana, una metodología de las 5 M para producir todos nuestros alimentos, una metodología de biofábricas. Entonces ahora esto lo estamos multiplicando con otras organizaciones, estamos compartiendo y lo estamos llevando porque nosotros ahora sabemos que para recibir primero tenemos que dar y es dando como nosotros podemos recibir.
Thanks to the support of cooperative coffees, we are able to share what we've learned and expand and replicate the model that we have found that works. We understand that in order to be worthy of receiving, we also need to give. We need to give first and give a lot. And so we have a philosophy that involves the human farm with the human at the center, and the 5 M's, which are natural elements that exist in the human farm for production to work holistically in the agroforestry system. So I'll just mention the 5 M's. Live molecules, minerals, organic matter, microorganisms, and gray matter. The 5th M is human ingenuity.
Thank you so
Por el
much.
tiempo sé que puedo seguir contando, pero vamos a dejar porque hay más preguntas y por ahí también ustedes para que podamos compartir.
Gracias, Freddy.
Gracias.
Thank you so much. You want to translate?
Oh, yeah. For the sake of time, of course, there's a whole workshop that could be done. But let's allow.
Thank you. That's a beautiful example of what regenerative agriculture and regenerative business practices can create on a scale of abundance that keeps multiplying. I'd love to hear from Sheila and from Vic as well in terms of what are you doing within your supply chain. So a little overview of your business and how you're managing your supply chain with regards to this topic.
Testing. Hi, everybody. That was great to hear. Thanks, Freddie and Melissa, for sharing. So I'm Sheila Kasani. I'm mission manager at the Fruit Guys. We deliver farm fresh fruit and clean ingredient snacks primarily to organizations nationwide while supporting the community and small farms. And supporting sustainability and regenerative businesses and supply chains. So what that looks like for us, we're family owned and operated, started in San Francisco in 1998, became a certified B Corp in 2019. And we have a regional supply chain model where we have 11 hubs across the US, aimed at, when in season, sourcing farm direct and putting together curated mixed fruit boxes that supply office break rooms, keep folks eating healthy. And with that, we've created a network of about 200 small farms across the US that we build long-term relationships with and who are really strong stewards of the land. And about 75% of our network of small farms have worked with us for 5 years or more, and it's primarily like our buyers who build this trust with farmers who want to have maybe exclusive partnerships and bring their products to market, and at the same time that long-term partnership building we've seen, we know when farmers have long-term economic viability in those partnerships, they're more likely to adapt climate-positive strategies. So things like enhancing biodiversity on site, for example. And to kind of pull on the thread that you guys mentioned with your impact fund and how maybe farmers start with something as little as $600, but this intention to have an impact and change practices that are more holistic and ecological. We've seen a similar process in just in building relationships directly with farmers and hearing their struggles, whether it be with water access or drought or pollination issues for orchards in particular. It informed our desire to create a fund as well. It's the Fruit Guys Community Fund. That's a nonprofit arm of our organization that does an annual grant cycle. So they're micro grants. So we've seen, small grants have big impacts. They're $2,000 to $5,000 for very tangible on-farm projects that the farmer tells us what's going to be most impactful for them, whether it's enhancing biodiversity or soil health, or maybe transitioning a well to 100% solar. Some of those things that really create a regenerative ecosystem on their site and on their farm, and has, of course, a ripple effect in their community. So a farm that might be surrounded by commercial growing operation or conventional farming puts in a 300-foot pollinator hedgerow, that has a beneficial effect for everybody surrounding that locality. So it's been amazing to hear those particular stories and build those relationships within our supply chain and without. So the grants we make are both to some farms that we may source from and some that we may not initially.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Vic,
Awesome.
a little
Thank you.
overview of your company and same question.
Sure. Awesome job, Freddie. Very impressed. Thank you for sharing that. My name is Giri. I'm the founder of Gallant International Inc. I was born and raised in Nepal, but I live in California. We established our company in 2009. So it's been like almost 14 years. We help corporates, nonprofits, celebrities on their sustainable journey by supplying 100% organic and fair trade certified cotton products. Last year, we helped 700 plus farmers, about 3,500 acres of land, to Regenerative Organic certified. So it was a good journey. It's very rewarding. The reason that we wanted to do regenerative is it addresses a lot of issues that we are facing today, right? So, like it is impossible to have healthy people on a sick planet, right? So our water is polluted, our air is polluted, and our food is polluted, full of chemicals, right? Farmers around the world are committing suicides, including US, because they are using all these fertilizers and pesticides. The price is going up, up those supplies, but the commodity price is not going up. In addition, all these weather conditions and the drought and flood and rain is destroying their crops, or they are not able to grow crops, right? So in California, I think more than 500,000 acres of land is unplanted because of drought, right? So the biggest leaders in this industry, the pioneer, advocates, true heroes like Dr. Bronner's. I don't know if they're here. Anybody from Dr. Bronner's? No? Anyway, so Dr. Bronner's, Patagonia, and Rodale Institute, they felt that organic is really good, but you have to go beyond. You have to go beyond organic, and you have to do regenerative. Organic does a lot of great job. In order to be certified to regenerative organic standards, you have to be organic certified. It has to be like USDA NOP standards, right? So I have a little quote here I want to read, then I want to expand on that, if I may, right? So again, Regenerative Organic Alliance was founded in 2017 by great leaders like Patagonia, Dr. Bronner's, Rodale Institute, soil scientists, and other farmers who've been doing organic farming practices. So according to Rodale Institute, regenerative organic agriculture could sequester 100% annual carbon emissions. So if you practice all the farmland that we grow, like crops or animal or whatever animals, it can do 100% sequestration, right? And the founder of Patagonia, Evan Snard, he quotes, regenerative organic agriculture is the let's see here, number one thing humans can do, right? So why not follow these leaders who have spent hundreds of years, thousands of research, supporting thousands of farmers and workers around the world, right? So that led us to do Regenerative Organic Certified. So Regenerative Organic Certification has 3 pillars, right? So you can build a house. When you build a house, like you have to build pillars. You cannot build very strong pillar in your bedroom because you have to spend time in your living room or kitchen or other places too, right? So Regenerative Organic covers that. So it is built on 3 pillars. So it is healthy soil, ethical and human treatment of animals, and fairness for farmers and workers, right? So first of all, the animal farming, the factory farming has to end.
Can I interrupt for just a moment?
Please.
Because I am really curious about the practical aspects, and I think a lot of audience members here are great believers in regenerative agriculture. So I would love to focus us on the practices of how, in a small company, in a growing company, you are engaging with your supply chain. What are the practical ways that you've found to be able to engage in these conversations, build these relationships, and what outcomes are coming from those engagements, and just some of the practical tips that you would have for people in the room.
So, as I said, we've been in the business making organic and fair trade cotton products, and we learned that regenerative organic is the next level. This is going to help with food insecurity, climate change, and treatments to animals, and fair price, and treatment to workers as well, right? So in order to go to regenerative organic, first of all, as I said, you have to be organic certified. So since we've been working with organic cotton farmers, so it was a little easier for us. Said, okay, let's go and go beyond organic. So in order to be regenerative organic, like you cannot have monocropping, right? So we had to encourage, convince, and inspire our farmers to do intercropping, interseeding, right? So if you are growing only one crop, cotton, but if you do say other 2 or 3 crops in between, intercropping, so it's going to help with soil health, it's going to help with food insecurity because it's going to grow more food on the same land, so they can eat healthy, nutritious food, and also they can sell extra thing, right? Then other thing is that it has to be like a crop covering, right? So the land has to be covered because if it's exposed to sun all the time, it doesn't hold enough water, right? So when it rains, there's a lot of flooding, right? So we have to convince that to our farmers as well. Another thing that there are a lot of benefits, but main thing is certification fee, training fee that farmers cannot afford. Freddie said, they started with $600, right? And a lot of farmers, these are smallholder farmers that we work with. They have 1.5 acres to 2.5 acres. So we said, okay, we are going to pay for the certification. We are going to pay for all the trainings. We are going to buy everything you produce, guaranteed, right? We are going to give you, so what we're doing is until we did organic, it's a big farmers group, we're giving pre-financing organic cotton seeds. I said, now we'll give you free organic cotton seeds, right? So that motivated them. And also it motivated because they are going to grow extra crops and have extra income. So that was other thing. And also we are doing other projects because we just certified last year, right? So to give back more, to encourage more, to show more impactful results, like how the soil is changing, how it is sequestrating. So that is also in the progress.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I'd like Melissa and Sheila, to answer that as well. How are you engaging your supply chain to improve practices and to measure and manage and support their work?
Yes, so like I mentioned, for us, the first thing is to ensure that we have an impact, not to get a number out of our work. Not everything that you can count matters, and not everything that matters can you count. So in this case, we have piloted a model to measure the carbon sequestration in agroforestry systems in coffee, using the perennials module, an adapted version of the perennials module of the Cool Farm tool. And this tool, which is available for free to farmers, but businesses can also access data by becoming a member, actually quantifies performance by practice on the farm. Unlike other measuring mechanisms, this gives us very important business intelligence to understand what practices are performing best and where we have vulnerabilities. So we are engaged in the last stages of a pilot for this tool adapted to the local environment, but also a model to compensate farmers for the additional value that's already in the product, but that by measuring we enable financial recognition thereof. What we have found is that COMSA captures a lot of carbon with their productive model. And we have also learned that by not commodifying carbon and reducing it to one number cancels out the other, we can actually map out amongst the entire membership of the cooperative where the vulnerabilities are and who's most exposed to climate risk. And the data from the tool allows producer organizations like COMSA to direct their investments because a co-op is not in the business of benefiting the best performers, but in elevating entire communities. So that typically involves making the largest investments in the most vulnerable.
Thank you. Sheila.
Thank you. On the supply chain management side, Fruit Guys definitely has a practices first, policies later approach. So as I mentioned before, you know, we think of the work we do and the relationships that we build with small scale farmers as a partnership. And it's really that web of communities and connections that we build. You know, that allows us to broaden the movement in the ag industry and think about this more holistic approach. And it leads to other things, right? Like other values aligned companies wanting to have that impact and that ripple effect. So some examples of what that might look like for Fruit Guys, like we think of this web of communities and connections from seed to need. So our impact business model not only focuses on small farms and the agricultural industry, but it also thinks about where there's a gap in terms of where food is needed and it reaching those most in need. So for our supply chain, we have 11 hubs across the country that source and then limit, you know, the amount of produce that's moved across the country. So sourcing it as local as possible, you know, as in terms of commodities and what's in season, and then bringing those products in our boxes weekly to organizations. So any excess or visually imperfect fruit that we might have left over after packing our weekly orders, those get donated to community organizations, nonprofit food banks, food pantries, et cetera. Here in Philly, our Philadelphia hub partners with a nonprofit food bank called Phil Abundance, which has been a long-standing partner on the hunger relief side of our work since 2007, I believe. And we also, through then on the ag side, you know, look at supporting local agriculture. So in Philly here, we have a 2021 grantee, Sankofa Community Farm. They're really close in West Philly, and they're got a $5,000 grant to enhance pollinators on farm. So just thinking about this ecosystem of connections with clients and their opportunities to have that broader impact. So we have clients who've wanted to engage with us on the hunger relief side. That might look like during the pandemic when offices were closed and folks were transitioning to remote work, choosing to forward their weekly orders to one of our hunger relief partners local to their offices, or supporting a small farm holder with a sustainability grant through the Fruit Guys Community Fund. So it's been really interesting to feel like you're this connector of a broader movement of people wanting to have an impact. Like we said, from seed to need, so anything from the seed cultivated in the soil, caring for that seed in terms of supporting regenerative agriculture and sustainability, and closing the gap on hunger relief and getting food to where it's most needed.
In terms of like business impact, we've talked a bit here about the impact on the local communities and the regenerative aspect of how it can help build communities and the abundance therein. In terms of internal to your company, what have you seen or what are you experiencing in terms of how you think about the cost-benefit analysis of engaging deeply with your suppliers? It's a question I hear from our clients a lot, is like, well, that all sounds great, but we don't have the resources internally to spend the time, or we don't have the people to engage deeply with our supply chain. Like, this is really hard. So how do you think about that cost benefit and application of that internal to the company? And I'll let you all popcorn your answer there.
Yeah, so we as a business are fairly small. I think we have 11, 12 employees total. And we do a lot of work. We are also a co-op, and we are focused on our mission. So our main goal is to get as much of the value back to farmers. So our operating, our margins and operating costs we have to keep down. So I definitely understand that concept of, you know, at a small scale it's difficult to do this, but we do this through partnerships. So we are partnered in this project with the Cool Farm Alliance via Sustainable Food Lab. We have some other project partners. We have Root Capital, which is an agricultural lending organization for smallholder farmers. The Chain Collaborative, based here in Philadelphia. Yes. And 6 farmer organizations that we're piloting this with. And this pilot is funded by the Inter-American Development Bank, so philanthropic funding definitely helps. It is a lot of work when I'm the one person kind of running the entire show at Co-op Coffees. But also keep in mind that if there isn't economic sustainability in your work, then there isn't environmental sustainability. That's the first thing that's going to be cut because it costs more. And if farmers are going bankrupt, they're not going to do the extra practices of filtering the water, of managing waste, because every activity is further going down into the hole. So in order to really be able to talk about sustainable or regenerative business, the basis needs to be a model that actually benefits everybody, including the farmers, not like having farmers from a completely weak position of need, but actually treating them as equals who also have business needs that need to be met in order for all your goals to be achieved.
Thank you. Sure.
Yeah. For Fruit Guys, we really do this by, focusing internally on impact and with our formal commitment through our BIA and the impact business model, we have a formal commitment to donate 20% of annual profits, the value of 20% of annual profits, to our hunger relief initiatives and to the small farm grants that we do. And we track and measure those impacts to the best of our ability, logging excess weekly food donations and which partners we supported. And some of you may have seen the flyers that, we try to do our best to kind of show like how many people we fed annually through those weekly donations, and what the aggregate impact has been through our micro grants to small farms, and now reaching 30 states and 108 grants awarded, and then expanding on that and looking at food waste prevention. And with the help of the BIA and the formal framework that it provides, it's been a great driving force for continuous improvement for Fruit Guys. So thinking about our weekly donations, and not just people fed, but how food waste prevention relates to CO2 emissions reduced. And so just continuously pushing ourselves to push the needle and to understand how we can measure these impacts and speak to them to set targets to just make progress and continue to improve performance and purpose.
Thank you. Vic.
That's very good. So what we felt is, rather than investing on Google ads or Facebook ads, no offense, even hiring PR agency or somebody else writing your story is a great step, but involving and supporting farmers is much more powerful. That's what we felt, right? So how we measure that? So, like as I said, we're doing organic cotton. We're pre-financing organic cotton seed, which now they are practicing this. We give them free seeds, right? A lot of times, I think we had discussion another day, that farmers, they grow organic, but they sell at conventional price because people are not paying, and it's a lot of things, it's cash crop, right? So if you don't sell it right away, by the time you harvest, the farmers are not going to wait there because they need money. These are smallholder farmers. They make $1,000, $2,000 max, So we felt that pre-financing when they harvest through co-ops, because it's millions of dollars of investment. It's not only Gallant, but there are other partners giving them advance. It takes almost 6 months for us to make bags or T-shirts or anything and bring to the US, right? But we pre-finance that so that they have money when they harvest, so they are encouraged and they don't have to go and sell to the market at a conventional price. If you do that, then they are discouraged because it takes 4 years to be organic certified. Then they will give up because if there is no benefit for farmers, right? So that's how I do. Then other thing is that, we talk about carbon sequestration and other thing because it's a process. It's not going to happen, right? So we certified, we have the baseline. Then now we are investing in that, sequestration project and other thing. That's how we do.
Thank you. And Freddie, I want to have you respond to that as well, and then we're going to open it up to questions. So get your questions ready. Freddie.
Sí, al inicio el costo es muy grande, a corto plazo, a mediano, a largo plazo, el resultado se ve, vamos logrando, vamos viendo en el camino que es difícil, pero que una vez que la madre tierra va regenerando, va recuperando, nos va dando frutos y empezamos a ver que nuestras producciones se van aumentando. Se va aumentando la calidad de vida, se va viendo cómo en toda la cadena todos vamos ganando, porque es ganar. Entonces logramos a largo plazo algo muy importante como la salud, que eso es lo más grande. Logramos conocimiento, logramos que la madre tierra, que nuestro suelo se regenere. Y eso es lo que va a traer muchos frutos. Entonces, además de producir al inicio con mucho costo, con mucho trabajo en esa transición, pero vemos que en el resultado vamos logrando y vamos ingresando y vamos sembrando otras semillas. La semilla de la vida, de la salud, del amor y la educación.
So at first it's very difficult and it represents very high costs, and you have to stick with it. You have to get through that because as the environment regenerates and heals, then the fruits are going to be bigger. And it's not going to just be the product that is yielded, but it's also life, knowledge, education, etc. that's going to come from all these investments and that hard period at the beginning of getting started. And I just wanted to add one last thing from Co-op Coffee's side, is that we also understand that part of our impact is setting a viable model for other small businesses to replicate and apply in their own contexts. So we are a small buyer, and with some of our supply partners, we might represent a very small share of their total volume sold. But we do this work because we want to show that it's viable as a business practice, that it has consumer reward, there's a business case, and that really other companies can do that too. And that's the power of having 23 roasters working together in a cooperative.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is it might be expensive, but we can't afford not to. And before our session, Freddie was sharing some photographs and videos from his farm, which is one of the most lush, beautiful, highly productive farms that I've seen, and the coffee plants are beyond anything that I had seen before. So come talk to Freddie to see those beautiful, beautiful videos and photos of the farm. So I want to open it up to questions. I imagine there are some. Okay. Just stand up. But I don't know that you need a microphone. Oh, for the recording. Sorry, here I come.
Thank you so much. That was really wonderful to hear your stories. I'm Athena. I work at a small grocery chain in the Pacific Northwest called New Seasons Market. And we're really fascinated and interested in supporting the growth of regenerative ag with our products on our shelves. There's a really interesting push and pull happening between what we're seeing in terms of all of these sprouting certifications. You mentioned ROC. There are others who are coming out as well as the questions and interest from our customers. One thing I'm really struggling to understand, and I think Melissa, you and Freddie both might speak to this, is the benefit sort of between the qualitative and quantitative already certified products versus how to support within our supply chain producers who are in the transition period and who might not afford or be able to make the business case for an actual certification at all. How do we, as a retailer, create space for those farmers? Because we know that this is a very urgent need globally, that we need to move and transition to regenerative, and not everyone will be able to afford to actually get certified. And I just love anyone's perspective if you're open to sharing how we might think about that.
Anyone who would like to respond? Melissa? Okay, great.
Well, I think that, certification as a single small farmer is definitely not viable. There's a lot of capacity that goes into compliance, and it's an investment for sure. So if you're working with small producers who want to make the transition, for sure scale is important. And that scale is generated by coming together into a shared entity. I think that if you have a relationship with somebody who is there locally and your volume does not exceed their production, then you don't have to complicate your supply chain with certification. Certification is risk management at scale, kind of. So if you have the capacity to visit them and understand that they're doing right, then, in some cases that can be enough. It also depends on what kind of claims you want to be doing around that.
Thank you. Second question was here.
Bueno, yo voy a preguntar en español, si es posible, gracias. Freddy, tres preguntas. Primero, ¿cuánto café por hectare normalmente produces? Dos, ¿cuál es la diferencia en los precios entre el café orgánico y el café normal? Y tres, ¿vendes toda su producción orgánico o necesitas vender producción por un precio no orgánico? Gracias.
Thank you. And before we answer, I want to say I got the 2-minute signal. So we're willing to stay in here as long as we can and continue the conversation. But with that, Melissa and Freddie.
Muy bien, sí, nosotros estamos produciendo un promedio de 30, 35 quintales oro por manzana, es por hectárea un poquito más, 35 quintales oro. Los precios, café orgánico, el mínimo es 1.40, comercio justo 1.90, pequeños productores 2.20. Y por nuestra calidad, todavía el diferencial todavía aumenta. El precio de la bolsa de los valores está ahora a 1.60, 1.65. Nuestros precios entonces están sobre este precio. Y la tercera pregunta, sí, todo nuestro café logramos venderlo dentro de este sistema.
Real quick, that's productivity of around 3,500 pounds per hectare of exportable coffee after the yield, etc. And they sell 100% of their coffee under this model. The current market price is around 160 today. It's traded in the stock exchange. With fair trade organic, the minimum price is 190. With the small producer symbol, which is 100% organic, the minimum price is 220. And then from there, they have additional value with quality and origin.
Thank you. So with that, I'll officially conclude, but we will continue the conversation until they come kick us out. So we'll just go rogue here. And I saw there was a question here and here, so we'll just keep rolling.
Okay. Thank you so much. My name is Steffi. I am with Earth Animal, newly B Corp certified. We make health and wellness products for dogs and cats, including dog food, chews, treats, and so on and so forth. So my question to you is, certified organic, certified regen, certified fair trade, all of those have their own set of standards. So prior to becoming certified, do you all have in-house supply chain code of conducts and responsible sourcing guidelines that you're using to help guide you and your suppliers before you get to that certification process?
Yeah, so it's all third-party certification, right? So either organic, I don't know much about food because we do clothing. In clothing space, it's called Global Organic Textile Standard. So that is post-harvest. Anything goes post-harvest, it has to be like according to their standards, like no chemicals and all this kind of stuff. So for organic, same thing. It has to be NPOP standards and also fair trade. So these are all third-party. And our standard is that they have to go audit, give the certificate before we buy. But in order for them to transit from conventional to organic, is time consuming and expensive, right? So it takes 4 years for NOP to get fourth year. And like if you want to transit, like first year, in cotton, the yield is about 25% less, right? So the next year is about 18% less. So farmers are not going to, you have to bear that cost. That's how you encourage, that's how you grow the movement. And the reason I said in another meeting, organic cotton has a lot of benefits, right? Like 88% less water, 60% less energy, all those chemicals. But the organic cotton production is only 1% of the entire place. So people are not investing because they're during transit time. So there's a loss of yield, and you have to pay as a premium if you want to do. That's how we do, right? And in terms of certification is expensive too. Like as he said, they cannot manage. So we do, and what we do is we add to that cost, basically. So our practice has to be third-party certified, and personally, because we are a small company and all that, so we go at least 2 times a year to India, meet our farmers, workers, make sure that it's compliant, and we also have our own small audit that we do on the side. Make sure they're compliant, and I'll tell you example, when we did regenerative organic certification, right? So it was fair trade certified, it was organic certified. So these smallholder farmers, what they do is, they don't usually hire outside people, right? They work, like a barter service. Today you come and work in our farm, tomorrow I'll come and work, but sometimes they have to hire. So they set a committee, and then they said, okay, we pay, say, $3 to come and work on our farm, labor charge, right? But that the rate they fixed was lower than the minimum wage. So there was a gap. When we certified, we have to pay that. So that was about like for 2 farms, 2 ICS, we call ICS. ICS is about 500 people in one group. So we had to pay about $15,000, that wage gap. So that's what we found, right? So these are the things that, we have our own small team, but absolutely has to be third-party certified, and we just verify.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The next session in this room is at 4 o'clock, so we are going to have to clear out. Oh, it's upstairs in the ballroom. Oh, they're not kicking us out.
Okay.
So I'd love to hear Sheila's response to the supplier code of conduct question, and then maybe one last one. And if you have to go and you want to get upstairs and you need a bathroom break, great. If you want to hang out and continue the conversation, stay with us.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I can add from our perspective. On the supplier, at Fruit Guys, I might have mentioned, we don't have a lengthy supplier code of conduct per se. Again, it's primarily buyers building long-term relationships and partnerships with growers and learning about their practices, seeing them in person on farm. And we know that the hurdles to certifications are large and real, especially at the small scale, for small farmers, for beginning farmers, for disadvantaged farmers in particular, having access to those certifications and the economic investment can be a significant hurdle. And so at Fruit Guys, we're organic certified. We have organic boxes, but we also do conventional, and there's regional impacts too. Like we know challenges that farmers have on the East Coast and certain growers of certain commodities have different pest concerns. And so there's a lot to sort of peel the layers of the onion on that. So good question.
Okay, I'll be quick. I just have kind of a maybe question and interesting perspective because we've talked a lot about scale and size today. And I'm just curious on your thoughts on, is it more important for you to work with a small farm, or is it more the mindset of that farm? And I ask this because I'm actually from a large-scale dairy farm. We're McCarty Family Farms and MVP Dairy. We are one of the largest suppliers for Danone North America. And we've also been in the top 5% of environmental impact, best for the world B Corps the last 2 years. So, there are a lot of great things that I think can be done on all size farms. And I guess to us, it's more about that mindset. So I'm curious on when you guys choose to work with farms, what is most important for you?
That's a great question. I mean, I think for us, preserving the diversity of American farming heritage in the U.S. has always been important, and understanding that like a robust democracy can support all scales, and you know, making sure that a 1 acre farm has a viable, you know, business model that can bring their product to market at scale and focus on climate positive growing practices. And certainly for growers, you know, especially at orchard, you're going to need a larger scale farm to bring your product to a larger market. So there's, I think, for a robust economy, there's hopefully a diverse representation across the food system and ag industry for farms at all scale, rather than maybe seeing something skewed towards just large industrial food production, but that everybody has, you know, a seat at the table.
I think this is a very important question, and thank you for asking it. I would say that there's a very big difference in the dynamic in the US versus in other countries. I mean, this country has a history of the agricultural revolution. I guess after the Dust Bowl, there was a really big push towards large production models, right? And then there's dynamics of like, you have access to machinery, technology, inputs, et cetera. So it's a very different dynamic. When we're talking about smallholder farmers in coffee, first of all, we have to start at coffee being a product of the transatlantic trade. Coffee is a product native to East Africa that is mostly produced in the Americas nowadays, and the way that got here is the same way that slaves got here. It was the European colonialists who owned all the land and introduced coffee production over here. So it was really slaves and indentured servants taking some of the seeds to their very precarious land that started smallholder agriculture in coffee. Then starting with the Mexican Revolution and the first agrarian reform, land reform in the world, lots of other countries in Latin America especially went through that. So there's a whole geopolitical dynamic in a commodity like coffee. Throughout the Cold War, there was an international coffee agreement that was basically in place and supported by the US to prevent Latin American countries during a crisis of prices to go have a communist revolution. And then that kind of, the interest was lost in the end of the Cold War. So now the market liberalized and we see a lot of crises with the price. So it's a very different dynamic, and definitely it's a tropical product and it has that history to it.
So because we work only in India, not many people own big plot of land. So these are very small holders from 1.5 acres to 2.5 5 acres max. But collectively as a co-op, as I mentioned before, it's called ICS, Internal Control System. In that, you can have up to 500 farmers. So collectively, it becomes like 4,000 to 5,000 acres. And this individually, those people cannot have market access, right? So that's why we work with co-op, supporting with like, you know, certification and buying from them. So definitely, I mean, you know, bigger farms in the US can play a very big role, and we need your support. I mean, we all know that problem exists, right? So in our case, even though we want to support big, but we are working there, and they're smallholder farmers. Yeah.
Thank you. I want to thank all of our panelists, Vic, Sheila, Melissa, Freddie, and thank you all for being here as well.